Hi there, video 4, and my apologies again for bringing in some of these really dark stuff that most of you don't really know about. But it's just it's good to know, it's good to have there. As I said before, of course you cannot deal with these things in the manner I can, because most of you are not equipped as a releaser, and you should not be. You are probably from some of the more peaceful civilizations around the galactic community, and by that have not really been part of the drills and the exercises of dealing with these evil forces. And many of you are accustomed to working as teams within what we would call soul groups, if you like that. And you were developing your reality within these teams, and therefore you're very tribal, full cycle oriented, including the attempts to try and mimic that inside our reality. So, of course, those of you who are accustomed to work as teams, your go-to solution to whatever comes up will be the strength in number. That will be where you will work together and trying, as you're activating, to join up together to do what you need to do. But the downside of that one from a strategic viewpoint is that, well, if you activate into your original ways of running teams, you will be very disappointed when you discover the trickery that's going on here. And I've seen that so many times. You have as well. I'm pretty sure you have as well. You gather together people in a spiritual community, and it goes well and fine until a certain level. Then you have that typical group dynamic. Step one, someone is suddenly pretending to be a leader. And I was just watching again, as I was looking a little bit through YouTube, see where people were of the old group of people that have been doing this for so long. And I just encountered Deepak Chopra, and he's really getting old. And still looking good, but getting old. But the point being, again, he is actually one of the Raja lineages, which is interesting. Anyways, I'm not going to go further down that path. But there was this whole, he's been asked, he had made a podcast about, am I a guru? And he said many have asked if he were a guru and seen him as a guru and all these kind of things. And he defines what a guru is. And by that definition, I don't see him as a guru. And I don't see him as a guru. I see him, anyways, doesn't matter what I see him as. But he put in that, and that's again the wrongful use of energy, the wrongful use of power, because he said many people have seen me as a guru, and I cannot give an answer to that question. That is up for you to decide. And I'm just kind of, sorry, because that is the vaguest answer that one in power position can give. He knows he's got power. He's of the Raja Naga lineages, for crying out loud. He knows he's got power. He knows what he's pretending to be. And he has this aristocratic bloodline all over him. And that just makes me, that's not a humble person. That is one that pretends to be humble. Just putting in that one, I was never really Deepak Chopra kind of fan, because he was always a little bit too arrogant for me. But someone might say I'm too arrogant. So again, it's just kind of, you could put this back to his lineage and my lineage are not really working well together, because he comes from something I'm not really seeing myself as being part of some of these humanoid races that I'm not really, thumbs up, kind of, no. Anyways, so just putting things in context with that one again, and he's probably a very nice person when it all comes down to it, but still there's this arrogance that also, of course, could be, if he had been a woman, would he then have responded differently? And I would say I've seen some of these female Indian guru, what do you call it when it's a guru, when it's a female? I don't know. That have had this streak to them as well, where they're going, everybody's kind of worshiping them as being the great teachers. And I'm looking at them and saying, you're a wolf in sheep's clothing. I got that. And you can say, well, Randy, you're just projecting because you are who and what you are, and you see things the way you see, so you don't see the goodness in whatever. And we can always come up with all sorts of explanation why we want to keep these featured so-called good humans inside reality. Why is it so important to have these leading gurus, saving teacher, guardians, persons that are the bright light of civilization, and by that are our saviors and our go-to persons to show us the way out of the mess. Why is that so important? Because that's part of the hive mind, tribal, hierarchical, humanoid, reversed, re-engineered, regressed type of genetics that pushes people in that direction. That's why I am asking the question, do we need leaders to lead us anywhere? And in the original progressive way of thinking, absolutely not, because each and one of us are self-driven within the understanding of the principles, the rules, and the laws. And we know exactly how and what to do in every situation. So the elder councils and the supreme councils has very little to do with what we call management of life forms. It has all to do with what do we choose as a joint civilization to focus on when we talk about how do we want to progress this reality field to its highest potentials. That's what's being discussed as a process, not as solutions, not as orders, not as authority deciding for others what to do. It's put out as an open possibility, as in kind of, yeah, we agree to activate that possibility, and then we will see if there are people that want to work with this and create it into a probability, and then we can begin to see the effects of what this is and what it leads to, and if it does lead to a higher purity rate, high standard, and high progression rate in the individual when they work with this type of evolutionary program or evolutionary reality activation of different holographic code systems that belongs into different older types of code streams that connects the present cycle to earlier cycles or future cycles. And here again, when I say future, I'm talking kind of what is being created by the now. That's the future. The future unfolds with what we're creating in the now, but we can still have what we call the past, where we've done something before, tested it before, and sometimes we succeeded and then it has become part of the now, or we have failed and then we have left it behind and put it into evaporation. So that is some of the, when we talk about what is useful and what's not, what's the right approach and what is not the right approach. The whole litmus test, where you kind of put things to a test, where you look into what is it? Is it good or bad? That all depends on the way your energy system responds to it. And sometimes some things that actually is good for you will create a very negative domino effect in your energy system, because you're beginning to activate and clean up some very negative levels of you. And sometimes we need to be in contact with extremely negative energy to see the infectious rate we have, to see the reversed amount of genetics we have in us, to see the regressed level and distorted levels of our energy system. So it's not just about shying away from all obstacles and avoid all crisis and then keep ourselves in the love and light meditation where we pretend to be something that we might not be, because we're avoiding the true work of diving into who and what we are and facing the what is in our energy system and transforming that into its highest purity rate. And if we can't, then literally let it go and evaporate it once we learn to master the radiation energy. So because that's what the mind field, the true perception field is all about. It can amplify and lift things up to their high potentials, or it can do the exact opposite thing. It can cut through the distortion and clear the path as it's doing so. That's part of the radiation energies. So the challenges for us that are doing this work is this ability to really look into who and what we are. And I was talking about earlier on in other places, the childhood trauma and how we respond to this when we're going into what we call the instinctual level, where we have the very early childhood trauma. If you have not received the correct natal care as well as early childhood as an infant, and you were left to yourself and you kind of got sucked into your own world of whatever that was and decided that this world was not a good place to be. Or when you were going through the limbic system and the activation of your gland system and central nervous system and your peripheral nervous system, and locating yourself into this world, getting the spatial features, the understanding of reality as an outer issue and not just you in your own body, but actually there's another layer around you that is not you, but the others, the otherhood, so to speak. how did you respond there? Or what kind of mentors were your parents, and etc., etc. So that's the limbic system. How did you learn to deal with these electrochemical rushes of experiences of being inside this reality in a physical form? And how did you deal with it? Did you get tantrums? Did you get really aggressive because you felt you had no control of it, and thereby you reverted to an earlier stage of human civilization where you kind of got all early nager insectoid just want to slay everything kind of aggressiveness? Or did you respond in a more mature way where you kind of understood, I need to get control of my body, I need to get control of this environment, I need to get control of why I'm here, all depending on what type of template and what type of genetics you've got inserted. And then again, while we was going through childhood and all the challenges we got, that's where what kind of defense mechanisms did you develop? Did you develop the ones where you really tried to prove yourself as being the good kid, or did you kind of revert into yourself? All of these mechanisms are part of our weaknesses. And we must, while we're working with these extremely negative energies, as well as activating the reverse genetics or the regress genetics in us, all of these weaknesses will be triggered because they are in a way the result of everything we have been before this life, as well as all the decisions we have made before this life and all the timelines we are connected to, including all the programs we're part of, etc., etc. So a whole personality matrix is a kind of a patchwork of energies and influences and experiences that are put together in a specific way. So when we begin to activate, all of that will come up one by one. It will begin to activate as a psychological, a psychic energetic process where we will see all of these things. And the question is, how do we respond to these challenges? That's why the chaos pilot mastery comes in, because we don't know to begin with. We will make all the wrong choices to begin with. And yet, not really, because again, not that I'm going to put myself on a pedestal and say, oh, I'm so perfect, because I'm not. I'm just looking back and say, okay, how did I respond in certain situations? How many times did I make something that was really stupid? How many times did I make the same mistakes? And sometimes we just do a dumb mistake because we don't know what we're dealing with. That's okay. You know, the trial of 3, right? You do it the first time because you don't know what it is, and you're just stumbling in as an elephant in a china shop, and you don't know what you're doing. You're trying to get yourself out of it, and you just make a huge mess of everything because you're in the wrong place at the wrong time and you don't know how to respond to it. But the question is, if you're put into the situation that is similar, not exact the same, but the similar one, how quickly do you understand that you, as an elephant in the china shop, you don't go around swinging around with your trunk and your tail and what have you, but you try to tiptoe out and say, oh, I try to make myself as small as possible and get out of this situation as quickly as I can. Or just kind of sitting down for a moment, assessing this situation. How the fuck did I get myself into this stupid situation again? I know it's not going to go well. I got all of these plates around me. I just have to breathe, and they will just go crash. So how do I get myself out of the situation? And that's where we learn the ability to evaluate by our mistakes. So we're not talking about the first time you do stuff. Nobody's perfect. We're all elephants in a china shop. Whenever we get into a new situation we don't know how to respond to, unless we've activated our original consciousness potentials, we will know by memory how to respond in the situation. But most of the time we will be, when we grow up and all these kind of things, and the response we have had from our surroundings when we have done the elephant in a china shop. How did your parents respond to it? Did you get the correct mentoring? Did you get the right solution? Did they do the evaluation with you, telling you, well, you should probably have done so instead? This was not a very fruitful approach to the solution or the problem that you were part of. Could we come up with some better solutions? That would, not when you were a 3-year-old, because children at that age is not receptible for rationale and deeper explanations. There you just cuddle them, you take care of them, and you can see they're sad, unless they're born with demon genetics, right? Most kids are not feeling very comfortable when they do something they know is wrong. So there you can already spot them in their early childhood. How do they respond when they do something wrong? And later on, of course, you can say when we have males that are chaos makers that are doing something and you address it, how do they respond to that? Do they go into self-defense? Do they become aggressive? Do they begin to slander you and call you all sorts of names? How do they respond to it? Or do they go in and say, yeah, I kind of see what you're saying there. I probably should have done it differently. And some men have become very good at that because they're kind of used to this whole whatever, females are always the ones with the lifted finger, right? And males are always the ones that are being the elephant in the china shop. So this is just, I know this is stereotype, but it's not far-fetched. You know, there's truth to it. There are females that are doing that as well, of course. And the other way around, where the male is the one with the reasoning and the female is the one that is the elephant in the china shop. But when what we're talking about here is how do we respond when we do something we know foundationally is wrong? How do we respond to it? Do we get full of shame and blame and we kind of diminishing ourselves and go into this scheme of thoughts where we kind of punish ourselves, mirroring probably the way the parents did with us when we did something wrong? Or do we go into practical solutions? Do we try and find answers to what's going on? And if we are this outgoing type, how do we assess the situation afterwards? Whereas the more introvert is a little bit more the observer type and kind of being very cautious with doing anything because he or she has probably learned earlier on that their type of genetics is not really well seen and well met inside this reality, and therefore have chosen to become the withdrawn observer. They're just kind of, yeah, I kind of know what's going on here, but I'm not really putting myself in the middle because I know I'll just be the one that'll get the beating, right? So they are not interfering. They have become the non-meddlers. So we have different programs that runs our personality structure. And we have different ways of responding to it. But no matter what we have, depending on genetics, past lives, current lives, childhood settings, traumas, whatever's going on, where we will show our strength is how do we deal with this when we are on our own. There are kids that are very reliant on their parents to solve everything for them, which is the downside with good mentoring parents, especially for the little insectoid kids. They will just follow the leader mentality and they will ask their parents to tell them everything to do. And then we have the older souls and the kids that can be on both sides of the fence, right path, left path. And they have their own very strong minds to what's going on. We're seeing this in some of the indigo kids. The indigo kids are the genetics of the military projects of Atlantis, and some of the hybrid kids and all of these they are more the crystal kids, etc., etc. So we are here also dealing with different species and their personality traits, which bleed through into the human, which will be more of where we're going in the future. Because you can kind of say, with the breaking down of the old world order program and all the whatever was there as part of the enslavement, imprisonment, dumping, whatever, inside our reality, most of them have been literally within the last 10 to 20 years have been wiped or harvested to the ground. So either they're being now taking over and with the returnees of some of the alternate reality programs under the enhanced humans and are being used as vessels, as a type of walk-in, or they are going into complete parasitic overtaking, which will make their bodies break down. And then we'll have all of the other inserted, recloned, re-engineered, modified, whatever they are, humans, which I'm seeing more and more of, that are technically not part of this reality. And they will be part of breaking down the enclosure completely, and by that begin to integrate what we call the original Density 1 reality settings, which again will all be relying on different types of alien technology. And that's where we're heading within the next 5 years. That's what's going on right now. And the question is, those of us who are keeping ourselves intact and are following this, including the hybrid kids, including the military projects, including whoever and whatever's going on here, this is where things are going to get really, really interesting. Similar to that kids movie, We Are Heroes, where you kind of look into saying, okay, they are the children of superhumans that do not know how to work together, and they are thereby learning to work together with all of their different features because they are to help the aliens to preserve the galaxy. So kind of sounds familiar for the hybrid kids, right? Point being, when we're talking about these things, the only ones that can control us, that can show us the ways, technically ourselves. And this comes down to one of the most prominent features of both the solar race humanoids as well as the original human civilizations: the ability to self-adjust, the ability to correct yourself through evaluation, through looking over the situation, through assessment of, okay, I went into the China shop. What did I do? What were the moves? As in kind of running through the whole scenario in your head. What was the conversation? What led to it? What was the pattern? What was the trend? Where did I go wrong? What got me there? That whole assessment kind of, oh yeah, I talked to that person. I got that imprint there. I got that energy there. That led to a different level of distortion. I didn't catch when it was happening. That led to another encounter where that was reinforced. And then you begin to see the game plan. And that's why I pulled up this whole in the previous video of the dark forces and the game plans they are making, how they build up this negative pattern to make you take the wrong turn when the window of opportunity presents itself. And the question is always, the first times around, you will of course fail because you don't know this game. You don't know what you're dealing with. You're not accustomed to this very high strategic chessboard game that you're playing. You're just thinking, or board game of any types, you're snakes and ladders, right? You just think that it's all random, whatever. So you throw the dice and then you just think that it's all random, all depending on the numbers you're getting. But what you're not seeing is that the dice you are throwing, they are being controlled. So therefore, when you think you are getting the right number to get to the ladder, you will instead get the snake and you will fall down into the regression spiral. And that's a very important understanding as part of being able to detect the patterns of change as well as the patterns of trickery that you are presented with. Because the patterns of change are the ones you create yourself by altering your energy system, by making the right choices, following the principles, and build up your energy system as I taught you in the whole transition science classes and completing it in the whole template science classes. You there understand the importance of following the principles and the rules and the laws, not as a rigid way of law making as you're seeing within the justice system. And it's not about bending the laws. It's all about how to work with energy and how to transform energy in the correct manner to give it its highest potentiality back, to give its highest purity rates, from where you can create the highest vibrational state. That's the standard. From where you will have that navigation skill to whatever comes your way on the code streams. You will encounter it via the principles and you will make the right choices and not being led down the wrong rabbit hole due to the trickery of the dark forces. You will learn to see through that with the radiation field. The more you encounter these trickster situations, the more you'll know how to deal with it. And to get to that point, all depending on who and what you are, you have to work your way through the distortion levels. You have to work your way through your human mindset. You have to get out to the other side where you understand you're a galactic citizen that are part of something that is so much larger than what you are accustomed to. And that little secure world of the enclosure you've been part of in your little Truman Show for so long has very little to do with the actual reality that we are getting ready to get back into. Unless, of course, you have been modified, or you've been wiped, or you've been transformed, or you have been taken over, or you've got a walk-in, or you've got a parasite, or whatever's going on. So you will interpret this in a different manner. But for those of us who are fighting to our teeth to try and maintain who and what we originally were, even though that's a very difficult battle due to all of the different influences that we're getting while we're awake and while we sleep and while we're doing whatever we're doing, it comes in from all levels now because of the changes in our reality program as it is falling apart. There are more and more cracks where more and more stuff can enter. And by that, attach or activate our regress genetics from where we can see it or align with it, and then it can grow stronger. I just mentioned in one of my previous videos that I had a couple of days with some form of illness, which I kind of got because it had developed into a parasitic level, which I could then remove. But it was actually part to some imprint of some type of energy I had not encountered before. So I didn't know how to remove it, so just had to wait. I felt off the whole week up until it. People would kind of say, yeah, these are the symptoms of that, what kind of illness I had. Similar, kind of a little bit corona symptoms. But the whole point was that the whole path up to, I felt off. I felt on the completely not myself. And I didn't know what it was. I couldn't see it. I tried to scan. I couldn't see whatever it was because I'd got something, literally a bug, energetic bug, some kind of energetic parasite I had not been acquainted with before. Therefore, I couldn't see it. But I felt it. I felt ramifications of it. And eventually my body transformed it into a parasite, which I then could remove that had different layers to it, which I had not seen before. I did see the dark ones. I did see all that stuff, but there were attachments to it I had not encountered before. And that's kind of learning it the hard way and then clear it out and get rid of that weird disease kind of feeling that I had, which took me out for a couple of days and really made me feel as if I was sick. But as I removed these different parasites, the illness dissipated just as quickly. So I had physical symptoms of some kind of energetic parasitic infection, which as I removed the energetic side of it, my physical form resumed its original, more healthy position. Of course, I am still suffering a little bit from it because there it had reached the cellular level, so my cells have to repair themselves. So that's also some of the things that's going on, including when I talked a little bit about some of the Martian blue light energies that are coming in via our sun right now. That could be what had sparked to life these weird kind of microbiota that created that kind of disease. Or perhaps it was because I was out because I had to do laundry. That's always where I always place my laundry. I try to place it on days where I kind of think it's okay, but it's always, for some odd reason, severe chemtrailing on the days I decide to go out for some odd reason. And I could, of course, say, look at the sky and the chemtrail and say, yeah, I don't need to do the laundry. But I push it as much as I can because I don't want to wash too much because that's not good for the environment. And secondly, it's just kind of, I don't want to run washing all the time because what's the point of that? So I just gather up my laundry, so to speak, symbolically speaking. So of course I could choose, I'll just do it today as in case blue sky today. Okay, I'll run over and do my laundry, but you have to kind of make reservations to be able to use the laundry mat or the machines. So there are kind of rules around this, how it's supposed to be done. But that's again part of that weird pattern that we're part of. Understanding that if we use the avoidance as a mechanism, to a large degree, we will fall into the traps and we will not learn what we're actually dealing with because we are avoiding the crisis. We are avoiding the encounter with these energies. And by that, we become vulnerable to whatever is coming our way. With the interdimensionals that kept the barrier, with them gone and many of them taken over, the whole idea of meditating on light and keeping up the bulb of light as protection fell with them. That's why they were taken out. That was a strategic move from some of the incoming aliens to take out humans that had that ability to keep up the barrier and distort them. And you could, looking in hindsight with some of the spiritual communities that had these as part of their members, they were taken out by other members that had some kind of dismantling code system that through a series of events or communications or verbal attacks or hidden attacks, a lot of positive stuff is coming out of the mouth, but at the same time, they're having this infectious code system, shredding it off into the ones that actually carry the light and were part of the barrier, well, taking them out that way. So that's been an invasion strategy as some of these different groups have been utilizing, including some of the healers, where you have people that were activating, going to these healers and then not being healed, but actually got different series of very dark codes inserted, which they didn't know what was, or it was in the 8th dimension or something, so they couldn't see it. And by that, beginning to dismantle their light structure, rewriting, overriding their original code systems. And by that, taking down the barrier between the abyss and our reality field. So that's also a fact. So we are, and you have seen that in movies as well, these people that are these kind of beings that are working under the angels and the ones that are working under the demons, right? So you kind of know the drill on that one. But they were here. I've seen humans in my, when I was working in 2014 and 15, I've seen some of these humans, what they were supposed to be and how they've been re-engineered and how they have been put through a series of incarnations that has allowed for the weakness in this current life, so that once they were reborn into this life, they would not be able to carry the original configuration. Plus, they completely forgotten what their function was as part of upholding the barrier. And were that already instigated via the hijacking? No, actually, quite a lot of the old world order races had an interest in keeping these. These are some of the old guardian lineages, keeping them, of course, downsized, not knowing what they were, but somehow knowing that they were able to clear grids, keep up the barrier, and holding the abyss at bay. So we are also having people that were supposed to be grid workers and doing this as part of the stellar activation cycle that were infiltrated by other group members. And as they were doing their grid work, they did not know that they had that dark levels coding in their 8th and 9th dimensional layer of their energy system. And as they were trying to transform the grid, instead of actually activating it, they were seeding in the dark codes instead, because members of their community were put in there as infiltrators to assure that the ones that actually could keep up some of the, what we call the old world order, alien implanted or inserted network that would keep up the balance between good and evil, or keep the abyss and the infectious third cycle genetics and energies at bay, they were targeted to be taken out. And that's some of the humans that had this weird hydra in them. They had this infectious type of serum A type of genetics that would take out some of the light bearers. So it's been part of this long strategy to make the enclosure crumble and fall and allow these different races to not just let's put it this way, they have overthrown the previous groups of hijackers. And they have pushed away the Dracos, and they have demolished the reality field so that they now can come in and take over from different factions, different groups, and whatever's going on. And part of our chaos piloting is to battle these forces, knowing exactly what they are, but you are doing it through reasoning, also doing it through, if you choose to work with someone, you can choose to work with someone, but you know from the call outs material where I talk about progression couples are not really something I would put my hope into, because it demands so much of people when they do choose to work together. We have enough in just dealing with ourselves. So if we are in some kind of partnership, we are on the joint forces of our fields, and the exponential growth rate of whatever we have in each other we will amplify each other positively, but definitely also with all of the different things that we are battling with ourselves, which I've seen in many different versions. So point being, to sum up and give a little bit of takeaway here of video 4, is that, again, as we began in video 3, the whole understanding in all of what we're doing here is to be humble in the correct manner. We need to really be self-observant and know how to self-adjust. We need to know our weaknesses. We need to know our childhood traumas. We need to know where we have that soft spot that will allow for some sort of energetic parasite to come in and grow stronger, while we are trying to keep up the frontal lobe current state of who I am today. I've done all the right moves. I have done all the spiritual teaching systems. I am being a nice person. I'm around other people, being a very nice person, and I have a nice language. I'm not being aggressive. I'm not doing anything. It's kind of completely natural. I'm here pretending what most people think they are within the spiritual community, doing the research, understanding all these kind of things. But the question is, how do you respond when you are confronted with some sort of alien that has alignment to your energy system, or some sort of evil force that has gone through the barrier, or some kind of bleed through from first, second, or third cycle? How do you respond to these encounters? And that's where the true personality presents itself. How do we respond? The first time, probably not so good, the elephant in a china shop. But second time around, what can we do differently? How can we learn to deal with these kind of things? Begin to approach it scientifically. Meditate upon it. Mindfulness, being that's part of the Buddhist thinking. You're mindful, you're observant in every now of your existence. Everything you're dealing with is energy. Everything you're dealing with is in flux. And there is all of these Maya or distortion energies that are lurking everywhere. So unless you're mindful for all of these forces that are coming your way, you will fall into the different traps. So the path of this mastery is to be knowledgeable of what's going on. And the best tool you have is yourself, your body that resonates, that responds to these type of energies, either by fatigue or tiredness or some sort of arousal or desire or electrochemical processes to boil it all down. What is initiating that? What is sparking that to life? I'm sitting here being all silent. Why is that suddenly coming up? And then the knowledge of the inserted regress genetics, the knowledge of the prohibiting technologies, the knowledge of the game that the evil forces are playing, the knowledge of the energetic parasites and their attempt to try to get more energy, the knowledge of the factions that owns portions of the template, the knowledge of what's going on in our reality field, not just as a research, but as an actual put into motion implementation of observances during the day, where you're going through the different highs and lows of the energies of the day, which I try to explain with the rotundum. And there you kind of get that, now I'm feeling that, what is going on, and you clear it out while you feel it, while it's there. And that's part of the chaos pilot. You are in this surrounding sea of energies, but you are navigating through it when it's still and when it's wild and roaring and whatever's coming. You are navigating the same way. No matter what comes your way, you're still navigating through. You can still get exhilarated, or you can get scared, or you can get all of the range of human emotions. But you know these human emotions, and eventually you will learn what each and one of these human emotions are connected to. When you respond in a certain way, is that a cube that has come in, or is it an energetic parasite, or is it both? An energetic parasite that is part of an original TG that has a cube attached to it, etc., etc. What's the program? What's the purpose? What's the function? Why is this happening now? What are they, whoever they are, the forces that are coming our way? What are they trying to change our energy system into? Are they trying to derail you from the window of opportunity? Or are they just doing this because it's that time of the month where they are in charge of our reality and are here to do harvesting, etc., etc.? What's the game plan here? And then what is your strategy? And the first important step, as I keep repeating when I end the video most of the time, you need to be in control of your energy system. You need to understand what's going on so you can transform it and clear it and get rid of whatever's coming in and growing or expressing itself. If you don't know what it is, well, eventually it will present itself over a longer period of time. Sometimes unfortunate, with very unfortunate side effects, especially if it's from a very infectious being or contaminated being. Then you have huge repair to do with your energy system. So the first most important step in all of this is to get your sight back, so you can see what's going on. And then the ability to assess what you're seeing in the correct manner and not within your human interpretation system. As we talked about, these dreams that could be interpreted within as archetypes and cultural collective memories and what have you, instead of just pushing it that step further, get through the programs, get through the overlay, get through the distortion, and go in and see, oh yeah, these are part of that group of races, or that inserted type of genetics, or this is representative of some kind of bleed through that uses that imagery, so we kind of understand the context of some sort of our original purpose and who and what we are and how we are actively supposed to work with energy, because that's part of our skill sets. We work with energy in different ways because of our different types of consciousness units. So there's not one way to do this. But the discovery of your specific way of navigating through the force fields of chaos, because that's what we're heading towards, will be expressed in situations where you are dealing with that chaos, where you're dealing with whatever's in front of you. There you will know what you're made of, not just because you're a good human that rises up to a hero type of personality. Doesn't have to be that grand. It can just be whatever mechanics and dynamics you take into use when you're dealing with that type of energy. You will assess the situation and you will know how to resolve the situation because you have probably encountered it before. That's part of the planetary activation cycle, that we will replay all of the steps that we have done earlier, but where we made the wrong choice. That's part of the activation. It will show to you, you have experienced this before. You didn't learn. You took the wrong choice. Now you get the situation again. How will you respond this way? That's part of the original holographic teaching system. Can you respond in the proper manner this time? What are your tools? What is in your toolkit? The principles, the rules, the laws. How do you respond in that situation? Sit down, meditate, focus, figure out what's going on. Take that moment where you look, where you scan, where you understand what you're dealing with. The rational approach to this is more important than us working together as a team under a leader. The understanding of how to really activate our original potentials without the wrongful use of power, without the wrongful use of energy, so that we understand this is to be played by the book of life, of the true progressive realms of order and harmony and balance, by following the principles, making the right choices, knowing what level of the principles we are dealing with, using the correct laws of energy to transform within the context and scenario of what we are dealing with on its own correct level, and at the same time having the encounters following the rules of engagement within the specific races, literally learning to deal with these different racial differences with the galactic races. I'm not here just talking about human races. I'm also talking about extra dimensional races and how they operate, so that you understand when you are facing these creatures that you respond in a way that will lead to the highest purity rate, the highest standards, and the highest progression rate for both. And that is not always compassion. That is not always just creating the bubble of light. That is sometimes something completely different, which you will only know if you recall your original systemic awareness and your original understanding of the lineages and the purpose of the lineages and the developmental processes of the original consciousness structure. So that's also part of being a chaos pilot, navigating through the entire spectra of energy and consciousness of past, present, and future as it has become later on, or we could say previous cycles, the current cycle, and the cycles that we are to elevate into by being what we want to elevate into, taking the Gandhi saying to a little bit higher level. To be able to be part of an elevation process, we must be the elevators ourselves, pun intended. We must know how to elevate energies, transform it into their highest potentials. That's the only way you're going to do the ascension. You don't do the ascension because someone is modifying you, because someone heals you into it, because someone pushes you into it. You get there because you are living by the dynamics of elevation. You're living it by the dynamics of the progression spiral, and you're living in it by the self-responsibility for your own personal growth and development, because you are scientifically working with everything you are, critically assessing every single item of energy that you're composed of, every single thing, every little hair, every little cell, every little fart, everything is to be looked with that scientific evaluating, assessing dynamic where you're looking, is it really just gas? Or do I have gained some kind of parasite that are now nesting inside my intestinal system? What is going on? I eat as I normally do, just to take that as an example. Why do I suddenly create gas? I'm still having the same type of diet because I keep the kind of same type of diet. And 90% of the times it's an energetic parasite. Remove that one, then the gas is removed, etc., etc. Nothing is random. Not anymore. Nothing just happens by coincidence. Nothing is just, that's the processes of the body. Not anymore. Everything needs to be under some kind of transformative process. I'm deliberately not saying under control because that's a rigid state, but transformative process where we mindfully observe every single thing that's going on and knowing how to deal with it, how to master that specific energy. And if we don't know it, we put ourselves up to learning by working with it and learning by trial and error and experimentation and innovation and the ability to follow the principles, the rules, and the laws of energy in doing so. So that's how we are going to get through most of the piloting within the understanding of being a chaos pilot. There are some very strict rules regarding how to get back into the progressive realities. And for us, we feel that these rules are rigid and many are kind of not feeling inclined to do so because they're afraid it will be ritualistic belief systems as we have seen it within religions, or as limiting paradigms as we have seen it within sciences. But the moment we understand that principles are processes, they are dynamical. The moment we understand the rules of engagement are to each situation, not that we're bending the rules, but they are also psychic, energetic. Within the encounter of whatever we're dealing with, they will unfold their nuance of how they are to be interpreted in the situation, not bending the rules. Bending means we know it's wrong, but we're doing it anyways. Not that. We know exactly what we're doing, so we reach the highest version of the rule, all depending on what we are encountering. And also with the energetic laws, that is a direct interaction between the reality field itself and us communicating in the correct partnership, with the correct commitment, with the correct use of power, with the correct use of energy, understanding this is exactly what the situation requires. And with that grand understanding of the situation we are in, not only are we transforming and healing the reality field, but it's also feedback looping into our energy system and doing the exact same thing there. Heal yourself, heal the reality, heal yourself. But you must make sure that you are as high level and energetic as possible in situation, which means you're humble in your assignments. You don't go out and say, I want to heal the soil in my backyard, or I want to heal this environment, or I want to heal this city, or I want to heal other people. You don't do that. That's not your responsibility. That's wrongful use of power. because you are thinking you're better than whatever's there and that you are completely pristine and pure, and therefore you can take on that responsibility. That's wrongful use of power and wrongful use of energy, and it will backlash big time, which I learned the hard way as well. Yes, we can have a lot of power. Yes, we can have a lot of energy, but whatever we put out there to prove ourselves to be better than we actually are will always backlash. It will always come back and bite us in the ass, and will always show us that trying to show how good we are is actually a sign of weakness. Trying to pretend that we are not good is also a wrongful use of power with the Deepak Chopra kind of thing, as in kind of going out saying, I'm not a guru. As we have that situation in the Buddhist teachings, where and we have that as well in the Gospels, where the students, they are putting Jesus up on a pedestal and he says, shy away from me, Satan. Or you have the Buddha himself, where he's saying, being lambed in yourself. I am not the one that leads you to enlightenment. You are. Push it back. Not as in kind of, the Buddha didn't say, well, that's up to you to interpret whether or not I'm your teacher. No, he stood in there. I am teaching enlightenment, but you will be the ones that will achieve it. My teachings will not count for anything unless you do the work. A guru doesn't count for anything. It's just a role model. It's just an exemplification of doing something. And if others choose to follow that lead and that type of teaching, going back to the shepherds, well, then that's good and fine, but only so far. The good teacher always pushes the students into becoming more than the teacher himself or herself. So a shepherd is about ensuring the environment so that people can grow. That's what a shepherd does. That's what a true teacher do. Not about sitting there with this false humility and saying, that's up for you to, sorry, I just can't have it. I seriously can't have it because it's arrogant. Sorry about that. It's just so arrogant. If people ask him, are you a guru? I think he should have responded, no, I'm not a guru. You're your own guru. I have just presented my perception of reality, and I'm just trying to do the very best I can. And I have made so many flaws. I'm not a guru. I'm not the one that you're kind of looking up to, but I've tried to find solution for some of the issues that's been going on. And I suggest you try and do the same. So you don't have to do my teachings, but take the general issue of it. As you know, I'm not saying do my teachings, even though I say if I say jump, you jump, but that's because in certain situations we do follow orders. But most of the time, the empowerment and our own sovereignty comes from our own experiences of how we take what others have shown us, take what we can use and implement it and remember it in the situation. And most of the time we will discover that 10% of what we have been taught will function in that situation. But most of the time, what we will really learn from is our own experiences, how we deal with the situation, coming out on the other side, feeling that we managed that situation well. And then doing the assessment, where could I have done it better? Where could I have progressed further? Where could I have evolved even more? So that in the next situation, having gone through these steps, you will face the situation in a manner that will progress you even further. And that leads us into video number 5, where we begin to talk about inner knowledge.